Right, it's 7:05, so let's go ahead and get started. Thank you all so much for coming to today's Starting a Chapter event with WoAA. My name is Harshini, and I am the Expansion Subcommittee Chair of WoAA's National Board. So that means that I help start new chapters as well as connect and support our existing chapters. We also have Alex, who is the chair of our national board, as well as Amy and Sylvie, who are two of our subcommittee members under expansion here today. So we're going to start off with just a quick presentation about what WoAA is, what are the benefits of chapter membership, and then some statistics and things like that about our current chapters. And then I want to spend the majority of this time answering your guys' questions and just giving you all the information that you need to hopefully be able to start a chapter in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So let's get into it. First things first is WoAA's mission. So our goal is to provide support and empowerment and networking opportunities for women and gender minorities in the aerospace field, starting with university students. So WoAA actually began, and I'll go more into our history in a bit, but we began with student chapters and then expanded forward into a national board. So making sure that our university students really feel empowered and supported through WoAA has always been one of our really important goals. So we want to increase participation in the aerospace field through technical and professional development, create a safe and welcoming space through mentoring and outreach, and build a supportive community. I know that last one is certainly true, and we've really managed to get a great group of people together, women, gender minorities, allies, who all are really working towards this one mission, and that's something that I find really amazing about WoAA as a whole. So our history, in 2018, we kind of got off the ground, so to speak, so we're a fairly new organization. But we started at the University of Maryland. So they had a WoAA chapter. It was called something else at the time, a women's group within their aerospace department. And so they decided to work with the department chair, the dean of engineering, and some AIAA board members. Oops, sorry about that. Some AIAA board members to make a national organization. And they reached out to similar chapters at places like University of Michigan, MIT, Stanford, Georgia Tech, etc., who also had women's groups to start a national coalition. In 2019 and 2020, we really took off and built up steam, so to speak, after SciTech 2019, where we ran a panel event, and then in July 2019, we became an official committee within AIAA. So WoAA is at the national level a committee under AIAA. And all of our student chapters and professional chapters fall under that. We also gained 11 new chapters in the 2019-2020 year, and we've managed to do a lot of different events, and that's certainly continued into this year. Even with quarantine and all of the other COVID situation things, we've managed to do a lot of virtual events that benefit our members. So how are we structured? So we have two parts, as I mentioned, our national, international WoAA board, and then our individual chapters. So our board is made up of university students and young professionals, and we have a subcommittee for each one of our kind of pillars. So professional development, technical development, outreach, member advancement, and expansion. In addition, we also have a diversity and inclusion group, and they focus a lot more on kind of what all of these different pillars can do to be more diverse and just be more aware of things that are going on and how we can be as inclusive as possible. And we also have what are called working groups, which are kind of inter-subcommittee groups where people from all different subcommittees can get together and work on specific projects. And then at the chapter level, we have, and I'll go into more of our chapter structure later on, but we have 19 university chapters right now, and they all operate, although they're under our umbrella, they operate pretty, by themselves, so to speak. So they have their own executive board, they run their own events, they work within their school and their department rules to, put on the programming that is needed for their members. And each chapter has a liaison to our national board. And so once a month, Expansion does a meeting with those liaisons to get their thoughts on what's going well, what's not going well, and just to be able to give them that support that they need so they feel like they're still connected to us nationally. So WoAA is obviously a subcommittee or a committee within AIAA, and so we're one of the integration and outreach committees. And then AIAA is the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, created in 1963. So it's been around for a while, even though WoAA is a little bit new, and we're really happy to be under their umbrella, and we've certainly been learning from each other through this fairly new process. So here is our national board. So as I mentioned, we have all of our different subcommittees, as well as our leadership. So the chair, Alex, who's here today, as well as our vice chair, Julia, and our secretary. We actually recently decided to expand this out a little bit more and open up the vice chair position into 2 positions. So there's going to be an external and an internal vice chair to kind of spread out the workload a little bit more as we move forward, and there's a lot of things going on kind of at that higher level. So we felt like we needed an extra board position to make sure that nobody was getting burnt out with the work that they had. And we have a QR code here. If you're interested in helping out with any subcommittee, anybody is welcome to. You don't have to be in a WoAA chapter to help out with the national board efforts. So feel free to join us. We'd love to have more and more people on board. I think we're consistently always a little bit short-staffed just because of how many different and amazing events we have going on. So the more help we can get, the better. And yeah, so here's a little bit more about each one of our subcommittees. We try and kind of span the gamut of what we feel like our members would need. So everything from info sessions with companies to resume advice to coding tutorials to anything else that you could possibly need. And then on the chapter level, we operate on the same regions as AIAA does. So there are 7 regions, 6 of which are in the United States, and the 7th is international. So Expansion works with chapters in all of these regions, and our goal is really to help you guys start your chapter, and kind of any roadblocks or bumps you have in the road on the way, we are here for that. So here's a lovely map of our chapters. Like I said, we have 19 so far, and we're really all across the country right now, and we're looking to expand further. Our most recent chapter is actually University of Alabama at Huntsville. They just joined us, I believe, in summer of this year, so they're pretty new, but we've still been onboarding chapters even during the pandemic and things like that. So we're very much still looking to keep this map growing. I think one of our goals is to hopefully get to 25. So we're really looking to get more people involved in WoAA at a chapter level. Awesome. So by now you're probably asking, what are the benefits of being in a chapter? So the number one thing is that your group, if you may already have an existing group, but now your group will get a national support network of other chapters as well as the national board. And that is really something that transcends beyond a single college group. So all of your WoAA members can take part in national events. We're looking to do inter-chapter events so you can get involved, especially now virtually, with other chapters and kind of gain those connections there and take part in networking, development workshops, national outreach programs. And, we have obviously our affiliations with AIAA can hopefully help to garner more department support if that's an issue that you're facing with starting a group. We can try and be of help there because, we're a nationally affiliated group. And also your chapter members can, of course, access anything through WoAA National, whether it be events, opportunities. People post everything from like job requisitions and referrals to different events that are going on at different schools. So you really get to tap into a great network of just other people, even for the simple purpose of like venting about something that's going on. We're, a super supportive community, and we'd love to have more people. The last thing is, resources on event planning, logistics, funding. We have a starting your chapter guide that you can use to kind of map out what your chapter is going to look like. We're working on an event guide so you can see what previous chapters have done when it comes to different events. And these are all some of the great things that you can get as part of being a WoAA chapter. The other very nice thing is that the requirements are pretty low. We try to make sure that we have the lowest possible barrier to entry to get new people on board. The only thing that we require is that you have one liaison from your chapter. That's your designated WoAA national liaison, and they will meet with National WoAA through the expansion committee once a month, like I said, for that monthly check-in meeting. And then if there's, information regarding your board structure changing or your leadership changing, we just like to know about it. But those are kind of the only two things that we require from you. There might be certain school-specific requirements that you have to meet regarding being a registered student organization or charging dues or any of those things. But from national, these two things are the main things that we really require. We allow you to operate very autonomously when it comes to your individual chapter, and we're here to just provide support. So there are 3 different types of chapters that we have within our current university chapters. So there's an option that fits everybody. So the first one is, a newly formed WoAA chapter. So this is, you don't have a women's group or a national organization group at your university and you want to start one, and we can, help you with that. So getting your leadership in place, getting support from your department, and kind of going through the foundational processes of starting an organization. The second option is maybe you already have an existing women's group or some sort of support network or something like that within your university. You can become a WoAA affiliated chapter. So a couple of our chapters, Virginia Tech comes to mind as one of them. They had an existing group and they just have kind of come under the WoAA umbrella. They didn't have to really make any big changes at the chapter level, but they are now a part of our network and we work with them pretty extensively. So that's a great option for a school that already has a group and they're probably wondering, oh, do I want to start a WoAA chapter? It's very low barrier to entry. You can just kind of come under the umbrella as a WoAA affiliated chapter. The final option is maybe you don't have a women's group necessarily, but you do have an AIAA or a SEDS or other national organization chapter at your school. You can work with them to create a joint chapter. So Colorado School of Mines is a chapter that has done this with AIAA. So they have WoAA liaisons on their board that act as representatives to us as WoAA National and then their AIAA chapter. So they get to put on that extra programming that WoAA would want and still be a part of their AIAA chapter, so they didn't have to go through the foundational stuff that could happen if you're starting a newly formed chapter. So you would just have a WoAA representative to us and also to the board itself. So somebody on the AIAA or the SEDS board would be that WoAA rep, and then we would also be in contact with them just to make sure that things are going well at the chapter level. So if you're maybe thinking starting a chapter is going to be way too hard, but you have, an already existing chapter, that's a great option to just get the WoAA network kind of connected into your existing organization. So here's just some typical chapter membership, and we have some, just like graphs and stats of our current chapters. So typically we have anywhere from 10 to 30 active members per chapter. Some have less, some have more. Some of our groups include male allies, non-binary folks, and almost all of our chapters have class years ranging from freshmen all the way to grad students. And some cases our chapters are much more grad student heavy, other times they're much more underclassmen heavy. It really kind of depends on the university as a whole. And then all of our chapters do their exec board a little bit differently and their board selection a little bit differently. So I'm at Georgia Tech and we don't necessarily have a president, vice president structure. We just have a committee that meets and we're the board that puts together programming, versus other groups might have that more structured president, vice president, secretary, or reps from each year or whatever. The point really being is that you can customize this to whatever makes sense for you, for your group, for your organization. And we're open to helping with anything that you decide to do with that. The next thing is kind of the faculty support and funding. So a lot of our chapters either get full or partial support from their departments, their school, their faculty, and it started typically when they started the chapter and has been continuing since. I understand that that's maybe not always an option for some schools or for some chapters, and so corporate sponsorship is also another avenue to go, but that has to obviously be approved by your university. Some universities are completely against it. Some universities prefer that you have a sponsorship package. So that's really kind of a school-specific thing. And then, WoAA National in the future is hoping to be able to give out a starter fund, but just based on how things are going right now, we can't promise that yet. But we are definitely, open to helping out when it comes to receiving support or funding from your department. I know that that's definitely a big sticking point that people have had. So we really want to make sure that that's easily taken care of because it can be a barrier to entry and we don't want it to be. Awesome. So here are just some quick tips that we've kind of gathered from our liaisons and from our chapters about getting your chapter started. I'd say the main thing is, holding events. So, especially while things are virtual right now, holding events with either speakers or social events or anything like that can be a great way to get members engaged within your chapter without having to spend a lot of money on it, right? And so, especially when we all used to do in-person events, like you'd have to buy food or you'd have to like fly somebody in, but we have a lot more opportunities now to bring people in or to do these kinds of events with a much lower cost. So this is a great time to just be doing a lot of programming. And most of our groups have found that professional development events, so things like info sessions, resume reviews, mock interviews, or social events. I know a couple of our chapters do pretty extensive book clubs where they all just kind of get together once every 2 weeks and discuss a book that they've all read. Those have been particularly engaging or particularly beneficial for them. So, and as I mentioned earlier, we're working on putting together kind of an event guide of what different chapters have done. And so that'll also be a resource that you guys can look to, as well as just other liaisons or other chapters in terms of starting off with what events you should do. Awesome. And then, yeah, kind of on that point, I just wanted to share some photos of some chapter events that have happened in the past at University of Maryland, MIT, and Georgia Tech. And we also have some more pictures of our chapter boards at University of Michigan, Georgia Tech, Stanford, Alabama, and University of Maryland. So we have a lot of different board structures, a lot of different types of how things are run, but they're all under the WoAA banner, and we help support all of them equally. Awesome. And so with that, I want to move it over to questions. Let me stop sharing. So I'd love to get any and all questions that you guys have, and we can go from there.
So just to clarify, so I'm at a school where we have an existing AIAA chapter, but not so with that, is it mostly up to I guess individuals in those chapters to figure out what the relation between the club is? Would it be possible to have a completely separate WoAA club, how would I go about setting that up with an existing AIAA chapter, I guess is kind of the question.
Yeah, so you have a few options. One of them is to have a WoAA representative on your AIAA chapter's board. So that person would be responsible for conveying information from WoAA National and kind of being the liaison with us, but also helping to get kind of that WoAA programming and that perspective into your AIAA chapter. But you can also, completely start a separate WoAA chapter of your AIAA chapter, and those can be two completely separate things at your university. Whatever makes sense for you. We just want to give schools the option to have different choices when it comes to making their chapter, because I know in some cases, starting a whole new chapter might not be an option.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I know at Maryland we had an AIAA chapter and we formed a separate kind of WoAA chapter because we had specific things we wanted to address that weren't being covered by the AIAA group, and there was no tension or anything. We usually host 1 or 2 joint events with them a year, kind of get all the aerospace students out to do things and tell them about both groups. But but otherwise they operate perfectly fine together. The only tension is like if you have someone who's super involved in both and both groups are trying to fight over them to be president the following year. That's about the only issue I noticed.
But yeah, we hope this was useful for all of you guys, and we're here to answer, any and all questions that you have. And if you're interested in starting a chapter at your university, definitely, I will put our email kind of in the chat here. This is like the official WoAA Expansion email. Shoot us an email and we'd be happy to work with you guys on getting that all set up for you. Awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, if you guys don't have any questions, or, you want to email me questions later or anything like that, that's totally fine. But you are free to go if you don't have questions.
What email can I reach you at? I don't have your email.
Oh, yes. I'll also put that here. Yeah. So you can use the WoAA Expansion Gmail. I check that pretty regularly. And then here's my email that I check much more frequently because it's on my phone.
So as far as I guess theoretically in the future, if we had like a whole, like enough people to start a chapter and like had kind of set it up like within the university, like what's the, I guess, technical process to be officially registered within like WoAA? Would that just be like sending emails or like communication, or is there like some sort of form, or like, I guess, I don't know, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's, pretty low barrier. So you just have to fill out our roster. So we just have track of who all is kind of in WoAA at the national level. And then you'll get added to our Slack group. And then at that point, we just need your liaison to be in our liaisons channel so we can kind of keep up to date with them for the monthly meetings. And then if you ever need to reach us, you can do that either through Slack or through the email. And if there's any big changes that go on, either with like leadership transition or your liaison has changed, that's all we need to know about. So we don't really need too much from you guys at the individual chapter level, as long as we've got a liaison to keep in contact with.
I just want to throw in there, Heidi, like we are just going through the process right now of trying to expand to India. So we are currently talking through some of the international challenges, so we can connect you with some of the people working on that too, if you're interested, because I know it's a little bit more difficult with all that.
Yeah, for sure. The international expansion thing is definitely been a new stepping stone that we've been working on with some people from India, and it's certainly big changes between starting a kind of local chapter, so to speak, and an international chapter, but things are going really well for them so far. So
I have like kind of a quick question. Just there's both like a rocketry club that has like SEDs in underneath them, and also like a woman in like engineering. Like which one would is there a certain preference towards which group?
So is that like the National Women in Engineering, or?
Yes, SWE. So it's like
SWE. Okay. So we haven't, I'll be completely honest, we haven't really partnered with SWE on anything yet before. So I guess it kind of comes down to like where you feel like your membership is going to resonate with it more. So I know a lot of times like people will choose AIAA because of a lot of the women in their department are already AIAA's leadership. And so they'll it's easy to merge the two, because kind of splitting them up would lead to half of the leadership in one place and in another. And so I guess wherever you, and I'm assuming other people who are kind of interested in starting this up, feel like it makes sense to do so. If it is through SWE, we probably have to figure out if their national people are okay with that, because we haven't really done that before. But for AIAA and for SEDS, it has happened before, and they're cool with it. So that I can say that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I guess a discipline grouping is probably easier because there's more overlap, whereas with SWE, you get a lot of people who have other disciplines and don't really would care less about aerospace specific events, whereas a lot of the WoAA stuff would be of interest to most AIAA members if they have any interest in diversity and inclusion topics.
And also, I'll put in the Slack here, or in the chat here, if any of you guys haven't already filled out our roster and joined our Slack group, you can do that independently of chapters or not. So it's this tiny.cc link, and our secretary Rosemary will add you to the Slack group so you can keep up to date on what's going on, and then you can contact us more directly because we'll just be on Slack. Awesome. Well, if that's all you guys have a good rest of your night. Hope things are going well wherever you are and you guys are staying safe. And feel free to reach out with any questions either to the WoAA Gmail or me personally.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.